Good morning. Welcome to Charlies Corner. Today we are going to talk about Clan Twitty. I'll go into our ties to that clan, how we tie into that clan, where they are in the U.S. and over in Scotland, where they began, where the family began. And maybe give you a little story. You're going to see the coat of arms and the crest badge, and an interesting thing about the tartan and how that came about. So, Clan Twitty is one of 3 clans that we descended from, and quite a story ahead. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, have a seat, and let's talk about Clan Twitty. Now, my grandmother was Mildred Adderley Twitty, and her father was Joseph Maxey Twitty, and his father was Uriah Twitty. Interesting thing about Twitties, if your second toe is longer than your big toe, you have what we call in our family Twitty toes. That is the Twitty genes coming down, where your second toe is bigger than your long toe. Twitties typically have dark black hair or dark brown, the brown eyes, and high cheekbones. This comes from Amanda Caroline Sawyer. Uriah Twitty, my great grandfather, he married Amanda Caroline Twitty, or Amanda Caroline Sawyer, and her grandfather was Absadeth Sawyer. Now, Absadeth Sawyer was Indian. He was Native American. He was one of those people that came out of the swamps of what was beachland, and so that's 2 separate branches of family that I descend from, that came out of the swamps of beachland. And if you want to know more about beachland, you can watch the Lost Colony video, and that'll tell you more about it. Absadeth Sawyer, whose granddaughter, Amanda Caroline Sawyer, married Uriah Twitty. That's one branch. And of course the other branch was a Sarah Hooker, who married H.K. Kennedy, had Mary Ellen Kennedy, who married Joseph Thomas Alexander. So that's the 2 branches that came out of Beachland. So my grandma died when I was about, I don't know, 3 years old, 4 years old. She had a brain aneurysm, blood vessel popped in her brain. She had actually chronic headaches throughout most of her life. Her husband, which is Charlie Seaton Alexander, he died when he was about 32 years old of rheumatic fever, which I read up on and stems from strep throat. We'll go more into that later on when I go into Clan Alexander. But she ended up raising 3 kids, worked at the cotton mills in Edenton, trying to support 3 kids. My dad grew up in extreme poverty, which was kind of the motivation for him, and we'll talk about that later as well. But let's have a look at where the Twitties are in the U.S. and over in Scotland, where the name began. Now, the Twitty family is quite an extensive family on the Albemarle Sound. Our branch of Twitties actually began over here in Eastlake. They eventually, by the time of my grandfather, they were down here, over here in the Edenton area. And in fact, if you take this bridge across and then take Highway 32, right along this Highway 32, Joseph Maxey Twitty had built a house right there. The Twitties, there's a Gloria Twitty. That Twitty was her maiden name, and she lives over here in this area near Elizabeth City. There it is. There's a extensive Twitty family on the Outer Banks. All right, so the Twitties now are located around this area for the most part. You will find lots of them, though, on the South Shore. I tell you an interesting story about Twitty. I was living in Edenton, and I was installing tile at the time, my own company, and I got this customer over here in Pea Ridge, and Robert Phelps was his name, and his wife was Martha. And so I'm installing a kitchen backsplash for her, and we get to talking. What turns out, her maiden name was Twitty, and we started talking, and a couple generations back, turned out we were like second cousins. I found new family. If you're a Twitty anywhere around the Albemarle Sound, we are related somewhere back there. They branched out everywhere. There's Twitties all over the place in this area. All right, where did Clan Twitty originate? Well, we have here's Edinburgh and Glasgow. Now, just south of Edinburgh, there's a river. It's called the River Tweed. And we'll zoom in on that a little bit. Right in this area south of Edinburgh, there's Peebles. In Peeblesshire, that's the area where where Clan Twitty originated. They lived right on the River Tweed that runs along here. And that's kind of crucial to the family name and how it came about. The family actually lived on this River Tweed, and we get our name from the River Tweed. And I'm going to tell you about that story. So, the legend goes, there was a man, had a wife, they lived on the River Tweed. The man went off to fight in the Crusades. The Crusades they happened between 1095 and 1291. A couple hundred years range there. But sometime during that period of the Crusades, this man went off to fight and captured Jerusalem in the Crusades. Well, while he was gone, his wife went down to the River Tweed to get some water. And while she was down there, she met a Kelpie. Now, in Scottish folklore, there is a Remember, he's a fairy, a water spirit. They're called Kelpies, and they have the ability to change shape. A lot of times they manifest as a horse or a stallion, and they have really sticky hide. So if you get on them, you can't get off, and they carry you off in the water and drown you. Kelpies are not nice people. They also can manifest as a handsome young man, where they will lure maidens into the water and drown them and then eat them. So the story goes that the woman went down to get some water, and she ran across this Kelpie. And the Kelpie attacked her, accosted her, and she became pregnant. So when the man comes back from his crusades over down in the Middle East, he's got a son. And the woman explains to him, he's like, well, how come I have a son? I've been gone for, a couple years. And she explains that she went down to the river, and this Kelpie accosted her, and she became pregnant by this Kelpie. And so he gave the son the name Tweedy, Tweedie. There's a lot of different spellings for Twitty. There's Tweedy, there's Twitty, there's Twidine, Tydyn. Is there a W in it? Yeah, Twydyn. But it's all the same family. It's all the Twitty family. And so that's how if you're a Twitty, then apparently you have the blood of Kelpies. Now, Clan Twitty lived down near the border, the English border, and so England had a lot of influence on what they did. Clan Twitty swore allegiance to King Edward I in 1296, which means that Clan Twitty would have fought on the side of England against Robert the Bruce, and my other two clans, the Kennedys and the McDonalds. And yeah, so he would have been on the side of England during that time. They were famous in Scotland for being outlaws. They were ruffians. They used to actually set up tolls along the River Tweed, and anyone traveling along that road or that river would have to pay a toll to go through there. And they would force people to pay tolls. They had a feud which lasted hundreds of years with the Clan Vetch, and they were fighting over land, who owned what land, and this family feud went on for hundreds of years. Up in Edinburgh, James Twitty led his clan against Lord Fleming, and ended up slaughtering Lord Fleming. The reason for that was Lord Fleming wanted to marry Catherine Fraser. Well, James also wanted to marry Catherine Fraser, and so he killed Lord Fleming. He ended up marrying Catherine Fraser, which is how the Twitties became a sept of Clan Fraser, and they wear the Fraser tartan. They don't have their own tartan. The Twitties don't have their own tartan registered because they were outlaws. They murdered and bullied and were just a powerful clan down in that Peeblesshire area. During the Jacobite uprising, in the 1700s, early 1700s, they didn't take place in that either. My other two clans did. They fought for Scottish independence. Clan Twitty did not. And there's the history of the Twitties is quite extensive. There's in the description below, there's going to be a link that you can, if you are interested in reading a complete history of the Twitty clan, then you can click on that, and it will take you to a book that was written in 1860 by a Michael Twitty, and it tells all about the clan. So because Clan Twitty fought during the Crusades, they did have a coat of arms. All right, and this is the coat of arms. Now, there's many variations on this because, as I've mentioned before, coat of arms are specific to certain people. And so there will be similarities in them, but there will be quite, differences in them also. And this is just a representation of the Twitty, Clan Twitty coat of arms. The crest badge looks like this, and it's got the bull in here, and then "Thal and think." This is the family motto for Clan Twitty, is wait and think. Now we look at the tartan. All right, this is actually the Fraser tartan. All right, Clan Twitty is a sept of the Fraser clan. You remember when I said James Twitty married Catherine Fraser? Well, when he married Catherine Fraser, they became associated with the Fraser clan. And so if you're have Twitty blood running through you, then you are authorized to wear the Fraser tartan. Now, the Clan Twitty does not have its specific registered tartan because they were outlaws. They were murderers. They were ruffians. They were a rough bunch. But they are allowed to wear the Fraser tartan because they are considered a sept of the Clan Fraser. I think it's interesting about clan feuds, and one interesting note is there's a rift in our family, the Alexanders and the Twitties. I don't know what kind of dispute they had, but Tom Alexander's son, with Charlie Seaton, who was my grandfather, he moved over from Roper area on the South Shore over to Edenton in the 1930s, late 1920s. And it caused a rift in the family. There was a big argument over Tom Alexander was mad at him for leaving. He ended up marrying. He left to get a better life. Edenton had more job opportunities. There was better life there, and Mildred Adderley Twitty was there, and he was crazy about her. Those two, I think I'll tell that story with the Alexander video, but they had one time, I'll tell you one thing about them. Charlie liked to drink, and he'd go out to the bar and get drunk with the boys, and Mildred Adderley Twitty, who was married to him, got married to him at this time. They're young, they're in their like 19, 20, and she comes into that bar with a shotgun and escorts my grandfather out of that bar, telling him, "You go home now." And Yeah, it caused a big ruckus. She come in that bar with a shotgun, told him, "You better get your tail home." So he didn't hang out at the bar too much after that. Let's go ahead and cut it off here. Um, did I miss anything? I don't think so. All right. Join me next time for the final part of this four part series, and we'll talk about the Alexanders. And so you have a good day, and I'll see you next time on Charlie's Corner.